And we are back. Welcome to my Premier League predictions for part 1 of Game Week 21. This is a 2-week long game week with 5 games taking place this weekend and 5 games taking place next weekend. We're only going to focus on the 5 taking place this weekend, but not only that, this is also going to be the first episode of our Asian Cup and our African Cup of Nations predictions series as well, because if we actually jump now to the predictions page, you will see that there is one game in the Asian Cup this evening, and that is taking place between the host nation, Qatar, and Lebanon in their first group game. So I thought it would only be fair to start off this mini-series that I'm doing for the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations, which will be posted every single morning. I thought best just to stick this at the start of this week's Premier League video as well. So we'll start off with this game. As I say, it is the hosts, Qatar, taking on Lebanon. Now, we did get to see a little bit of Qatar at the World Cup, also taking place in Qatar. Around this time last year, it would have just finished, of course, with Argentina winning. And Qatar, to their credit, put up a little bit more of a display than I think most people were expecting. They still, of course, didn't do anything significant. However, they did put out a good showing. And the other thing that has to be noted about this Asian Cup is, of course, that it is taking place in Qatar, which does mean that the conditions are going to be more suited to the countries from around that area of the globe. So for me, looking ahead to the first game of the Asian Cup tonight, I am going to go for a Qatar win over Lebanon. I'm going to go for 2-1. The last time these sides met, it was a 2-0 win for Qatar. However, that was 5 years ago. So not a lot to really go on between these two sides. Only the sort of recent form that they've had against other Asia teams in which Qatar have performed better. So I think with them being the host nation tonight, I would expect them to get the win to open up the Asian Cup. And like I say, stick around on this channel. Make sure you are subscribed because we are going to be posting every single morning for the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations over the course of the next few weeks. From there then, let's move on to the Premier League then, which also starts tonight, and it is between Burnley and Luton in the Friday night football. It was a 2-1 win for Burnley at Kenilworth Road in what was probably Luton's worst performance of the season so far. Burnley, of course, have been playing very, very well recently, starting to pick up a few results here and there, but not quite as many as they would like. Luton, of course, have also been performing much better over the last few weeks, but again, also not quite picking up the results that they may feel like they have been deserving. So I think it's going to be an interesting one tonight. Burnley were way better than Luton in the matches that these sides faced in the Championship last season. However, despite that, Luton was still able to get some semi-decent results in those games as well. So really, really hard to split the two of them. And I think going ahead to the other 4 matches we're going to talk about today, I think all of these Premier League matches are going to be really, really tight. I'm going to start off the weekend with a 1-1 draw for Burnley and Luton Town tonight. I really don't know which way it is going to go. On to the start of the weekend games then, and we kick things off with Everton taking on Aston Villa. And this is what I mean. Every single game, it could go either way. You can make strong arguments for Everton to get another good win at home. You can make strong arguments for Aston Villa, who have been absolutely phenomenal in the Premier League so far this season, to win away at Everton. And of course, you could easily put this one as a draw as well. I have to look at the form that I have seen over the last couple of weeks, and that is that Everton have actually really struggled in their last few games. It looks like their steam has just about run out at the moment. And Aston Villa's as well, to be fair, hasn't been the best the last couple of weeks. So I'm just going to edge it in favour of Aston Villa, but watch this space. I really do, like I say, think anything is possible, and I'm going to go for 2-1 to Aston Villa. On to the London derby then, the big one for Chelsea and Fulham. Fulham would argue this is their most important fixture of the season against Chelsea. I think Chelsea sometimes think it's Fulham, but other times think it's other teams in London. But for Fulham, it is definitely the big one, the big derby of the weekend between Chelsea and Fulham. And again, recent form would suggest that this is not going to be as easy as Chelsea turn up and win. They've not been playing very well. They've certainly not been scoring enough goals recently, Chelsea. Yes, they did score some goals against Luton in the Premier League last time out, but then they shot a blank against Middlesbrough in the EFL Cup semi-final. Like, if you're not going to turn up for a Cup semi-final, how are you going to motivate yourself to get a result against a Fulham side that did play absolutely fantastically in their respective EFL Cup semi-final, and quite frankly, probably should have been coming away from Anfield with more than a 2-1 defeat. So, with all of that said, again, I can't split these two sides, and again, I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, but like I say, these fixtures are really, really tough this weekend. And they're not going to get any easier because the next one is Newcastle at home to Manchester City. A game that finishes a 3-3 draw last year, one of the games of the season. Newcastle, of course, have had a bad run of form recently, losing 7 of their previous 8 going into that FA Cup game against Sunderland. However, it seemed like that sort of game motivated them to start producing the sort of performances we would expect from Newcastle, coming away with that 3-0 win against Sunderland. Manchester City, however, of course, absolutely flying again at the moment. Comfortable for them last time out in the Premier League. Very comfortable for them in the FA Cup last week against Huddersfield. De Bruyne, at least back on the bench again, I would say, for this one. Potentially could start after coming on against Huddersfield. Is Erling Haaland going to be fit as well? Could be a very interesting one. I think it's going to be another very, very good game. I think it's going to be high intensity, lots of goals. And I just think Manchester City are going to end up edging it. And I'm going to go for 3-2. I would be shocked if Newcastle don't get themselves 1 or 2 goals. However, I will also be shocked if Manchester City don't get 2 or 3 goals. So like I say, it could be a very, very interesting one. And then finally, it is Manchester United against Tottenham. And in this sort of game, we can sort of go back to where we started the video, which was, of course, talking about the Asia Cup and the African Cup of Nations, because both of these sides will have some players missing due to the Asia Cup and the African Cup of Nations. Now, of course, the other games that we've mentioned before, the other sides will have 1 or 2 players missing, apart from Manchester City, who have no players missing for either tournament. However, it is for Manchester United and Tottenham, where there are some key players that are going to be involved. Firstly, Andre Onana, who's going to play for Manchester United against Tottenham and then fly out to Cameroon to play Monday night again for Cameroon. Absolute madness, incredibly disrespectful to Bayandir, who has still not played a single minute of football for Manchester United this season. I don't quite know why we signed him if he was never going to be played. But Onana is going to play. Amrabat's unavailable for Manchester United. For Tottenham, no Heung-min Son, as of course he is at the Asia Games, and no Bissouma or Sarr in the midfield as they are at the African Cup of Nations. Massive, massive losses for Tottenham. This has to be a chance for Manchester United to capitalise. Not only that, the way that Tottenham play with their incredible high line and high pressing will actually suit how Manchester United like to sit back and counter-attack. So, a real opportunity for Manchester United to get the win here. I'm not convinced in the slightest that that is going to be what happens. I just think with the amount of players missing for Tottenham due to AFCON, Asia Cup and just injuries, I think they might have 1 or 2 suspensions as well. Is Dragusin going to play? That's another one to talk about as well. We shall see. But all things considered, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Manchester United. Of course I am. I'm Manchester United biased. But genuinely, with all the things working against Spurs for this game, Manchester United, quite frankly, if they don't capitalise, don't deserve anything. Not that they deserve anything anyway for how they've played so far this season, but if it doesn't happen here, it's just never going to happen at all. So 2-1 to Manchester United, but genuinely wouldn't surprise me to see Tottenham get at least a draw, possibly even a win. But as I said, I think that could be the case for all 5 Premier League fixtures taking place this weekend. I really do think all 3 results are possible in all 5 fixtures. But why don't you guys let me know down in the comment section what you think is going to happen in these games this weekend. And are you excited for the Asia Cup or the African Cup of Nations? Are you going to watch any of it? Do you even care? Well, if you do, like I say, there is going to be daily uploads for the Asian Cup and the African Cup of Nations coming up on this channel over the next few weeks. So make sure, if you haven't done so already, to finally drop a like on this video and definitely subscribe to the channel so you don't miss out on any of that content. I will see you tomorrow morning for the first sort of proper day of the Asia Cup and the African Cup of Nations.